Hey guys, welcome to the video. My name is Luvin. I'm a member of Whisktakers, and today I'll be sharing with you tips on how to get the best amount of damage in guild battles. So the strategy I'll be talking about in this video is one that we here at Whisktakers have used to get ourselves into top 30. And I'll be giving you a full breakdown on how the strategy works and how to make sure you have a successful run. I'll be putting each section of this video's timestamps down in the description, so you can always just go over each of them if you want to. So, let's talk strategy. The strat that I'll be using today is the double vampire strat, and I'll link a full written guide down in the description below. Let's first go over all the specifications you'll be needing on your team. So the first unit you'll be needing is Dark Chocolate Cookie, and he acts as a bit of a tank, plus he gives defense reduction on his skill. So what I have on him are some damage resist and cooldown toppings, but you can do this without cooldown toppings at all, just do full damage resist. The reason for the cooldown toppings are some timing stuff, which I'll be getting into in a moment. Next, you'll need Vampire Cookie. So Vamp has a very strong single target ability that allows him to do a huge chunk of damage. Plus, he is not affected by the dragon's passive buff, which is damage reflect, which essentially what it does is just reflecting damage dealt to the dragon back to the cookies. So what I have here is just a full attack vampire with some CD substats, and basically what the CD substats are for is to just make the timing of this strategy much better. If you want to, you don't really need CD substats on vampire, but it's always nice to have some just to give yourself that window of like a few milliseconds to work with. If you're really struggling with this, I highly suggest you just put some, like maybe 1 or 2 cooldown toppings on vampire. But do keep in mind, this will actually sacrifice a good chunk of attack on vampire because you're losing on the set bonus. You will also need Licorice Cookie. So Lico has a very high utility in guild battle, mainly because he can summon these minions that act as damage sponges. They can tank these stuns and massive hits, giving your team extra uptime to deal more damage. So to make sure your runs have a higher success rate, you will need to build up a lot of CD on Lico. I'll explain why is that the case later, but I have here 25% on Lico. It's best to give him at least 22 or 23, but less works just about fine. It's just that your success rate kind of tanks if you don't have enough cooldown on Lico. Rai Cookie will also be a very great addition to your team because she is a single target DPS. But because she does that much damage, she will also just die instantly after her first cast. But then again, she is still very worth using in your team. So all you gotta do is just throw on a full set of attack toppings with some crit substats if you want to. Now, let's go over some choices to fill out the 5th slot on your team. So the first option, which is the option I personally use, is Pomegranate Cookie. The best thing about Pom is that you don't even really need to build her. Here I have like a level 30 Pom with some naked CD toppings on. You only really want her for the attack buff on her skill, and the healing is really just a bonus, so you don't even need to really upgrade her skill. You can also use Latte and Espresso, though because they are AoE damagers, they won't really have a high amount of damage. Unless you have a fully maxed Latte and Espresso, Pom is generally the better choice. The last option would be Black Raisin. She's a new cookie, which means she will generally do more damage than others. She's also an AoE unit, but I'll go more in depth in how to use Black Raisin and why you should or should not be using her in a separate section because that is just a whole other nut to crack. With your cookies down, let's talk treasures. The absolute must-have treasure will be the Pilgrim Slingshot. Slingshot is very good specifically because it can stack its effect on top of DC skill, and because defense reduction is multiplicative, which just means having more is better, you will just achieve a lot more damage done onto the dragon. Now the level on Slingshot doesn't really matter, you just get as high of a level as possible, and in general, if you switch over to Slingshot, you'll get much better results in guild battle. The next one will be the squishy jelly watch. Now, having a max watch is very important for the strat because you will need these exact timings to make the strat work. If you don't have a max watch, you will need to make up the difference by putting cooldown on all of your cookies, which, in my opinion, is just not worth it. You're better off sticking with another strat, which is more beginner friendly. It's called the Lico Tank strat, and I'll be linking that down below. The final treasure will be the Old Pilgrim Scroll. Scroll has a passive attack buff, which is simply irreplaceable. Unless you somehow still don't have Scroll while having the treasures I just mentioned, then you can substitute with either the Miraculous Ghost Ice Cream or the Grim Looking Sai. Ice Cream provides more defense reduction, while Sai provides a crit % buff. Now that you have your team fully set up, let's move on to the next part, the actual battle. So let's go over this full gameplay footage first, just to let you see how a fully successful run should look like.
그분을 위해
이걸로 끝이야. 목마르다기. 최강의 해골이다. 이걸로
그분을
끝이다.
위해
목마르다고.
Alright, time to break this whole thing down. So right off the bat, you will want to cast Lico the second he's off cooldown. This is to make sure the minions will be ready to tank the dragon's first swipe, and also so that he will have his second cast ready in time for the next dragon attack. Over here, after the boss text, you'll want to prepare to cast Palm. Pay attention to the positioning, as the ideal positioning will be when she is completely up the stairs. Doesn't really matter if you cast her late, just don't cast too early or you risk missing the buff for some time. Right after, you'll want to cast DC. You can get a feel for this for yourselves. Personally, I just wait till the dragon is sort of within sight, but you can also look at Slingshot for a visual cue. Ideally, cast DC at about 1 o'clock on Slingshot. Next, you want to get ready to press Vamp and ride both at the same time. Taking once again from Slingshot's visual cue, cast both at the same time when it is at about 5 or 6 o'clock, like so. You don't really need to worry about them not getting Slingshot's effect, because they both have rather long cast times, which means they will need a second or two before they actually do any damage, whereas Slingshot's effect is applied immediately. After that, you want to pay attention to Lico, as you will need to cast him the second he's off cooldown once again. If you notice here, Lico's minions' positioning are very far off. This is because Lico is affected by damage reflect and he's died right as his minions is being summoned. Lico does not summon his minions all at the same time, but rather one at a time with some slight timing difference. The first will always be the front one, which will always hit the dragon. If Lico crits, he will most likely die, but his minions will continue to appear, but at a very odd positioning. Here's a clip of how it would look like if Lico doesn't immediately die on first bolt. See the difference? Now, why does this matter? This here will often be the one thing that determines if you have a successful run or not. I'll put a link to a series of pictures breaking down what happens, but I'll explain it here. If the minions are not all at the front when the dragon bites, a few things might happen. Dark Choco dies, Dark Choco and Vamp dies, or your entire remaining party just gets absolutely wiped out. Any of these happen and your run is just absolutely ruined. The minions will need some time to rush forward, and timing is very tight here. This brings me to the reason why you will need as much CD on your Lico as possible. If you refer to our CD chart, you can find the full breakpoint value for each cookie, but basically what happens here is that you need the extra half a second to let Lico's minions rush forward. If you have say only 19% CD on Lico, you will be missing the crucial few milliseconds that would allow Lico's minions to rush forward to tank the bite. On higher level dragons, your Dark Choco is very likely to be one-shot, while on lower level dragons, he might just be stunned and have half his health left. But honestly, just pump Lico with as much CD as possible so that you make sure there is no way for any of other cookies to die on your team. Alright, let's get back to the fight. After the bite, you won't really have to do anything until you see the dragon start to summon these minions. You'll want to wait until these minions are just about to be summoned before you cast DC. Why? Because DC skill has an effect that will knock enemies onto the air, thus interrupting/delaying them. A lot of players will have their Vamp get one-shot by these minions at about this stage, and this is the way to prevent it without sacrificing anything. The timing might feel a little bit hard to grasp, but you can just anticipate the dragon's roar and cast DC right at that moment. By doing this, you can delay these minions reaching for your team, and you can have Vamp effectively get off his second cast. After you cast DC, Palm should also be ready to cast. Just cast her, and then you will want to just cast Vamp and Slingshot further one last time. And that's it! You can tell that Vamp has successfully got his second cast off by looking at his button here. If it flips from the cast icon back to his cookie icon, congratulations, you've got it! I tend to check my battle stats right after just to see how I did, and also to take note of the dragon's HP for my guild. Now, let's go over the order of skill casting one more time. Cast Lico as he's off cooldown. Palm right as she's up the stairs. DC at 1 o'clock. Rai and Vamp at 5 o'clock. Lico second cast instantly. DC when minions are about to appear, Palm again, then Vamp and Slingshot. All of this might take some time for you to get used to, but it's really simple stuff, so doing a few tries will be all you need, and the payoff is definitely worth it. Let's move on to some extra stuff, aka what about the other cookies? If you're using latte or espresso, the cast time is just about the same as when you're casting Rai and Vamp. They will all die within the first round anyway, so you don't really have to worry too much about their timings. You just want to make sure their timings don't affect you casting Vamp. Let's talk Black Raisin. Now, her use will be a little bit more complicated, and it is really your choice to see if she is worth using at all. There are two ways to go about this, which is either a full CD build, so she can cast twice, or a full attack build, but she only casts once. For the full CD build, she would not be getting Slingshot's effect on first cast, and on second cast, she just doesn't get both DC and Slingshot. The reason is because she has a very short cast time, compared to say Rai, who winds her guns around before she starts shooting. Raisin doesn't do that, she instantly pounces, and that really messes with the timings. On second cast, she targets the minions, and this would mean having to cast DC early if you don't want to hit minions, yada yada yada. Which just brings me to my point. CD Raisin, is it worth it? No. But if you're desperate, might as well try it. For the attack build, you just want to cast her at the same time as Lico's second cast, just to make sure she gets both DC and Slingshot. You just need to stack a lot of attack on her and let her do her thing. No need to worry about second cast, she should just do a little bit lower than Rai. And if Palm's buff doesn't add up Rai and Vamp's numbers, you can just swap Palm for Raisin. Is Raisin worth to use? Well, depends. Again, it's up to you to decide if she's worth using, and right now the best looking option is the full attack build, single cast method. And that's all from me today. I hope this helps you to improve your guild battle gameplays further, and if this is your first time even trying any sort of guild battle strategy, I hope this has massively increased your damage numbers. If you have any questions, feel free to join our guild Discord server, and I'll be there with the members of our little community to answer any concerns you have. Be sure to check out all the links below to find us on Twitter and Discord. Thank you so much for watching, have a nice day.